So my name's Kathy Pagliaro. I am trained technically as a chemical engineer, but have pursued quite a bunch of different pathways in adult learning. One of those includes discovering neuroscience through a couple different pathways. One is through a master's in industrial psychology. The other was through MIT's Neuroscience for Business as executive course. And then also through the Neuro Leadership Institute, which has some really fabulous frameworks and training for brain-based conversations and brain-based coaching and the like. When you think about what's really important, when you think about the threat response, what actually happens, back to the chemistry of it. So I won't get this 100% right, but if you think about what's going on chemically in your brain, all of your chemistry goes to self-preservation, right? So, everything goes to kind of your primitive brain, and then your prefrontal cortex, which is all your higher executive level thinking skills, is a bit deprived, right, of the chemistry it needs to function optimally. So what I sometimes coach people and tell them is, by default, you are making people less than in that moment, right? Their cognition is down, their creativity is down, their ability to collaborate is down. All these things get negatively impacted because they literally do not have the oxygen and glucose and like things that they need to function, because they're in self-preservation mode. Even though it seems a little silly because it's a social threat, the body responds the same until you can convince it that, it's okay. But it is a construct to consider as you're thinking about what could you do, particularly as leaders or advisors, right, in organizations, to help set the stage for a culture that really is working towards reward and not running away from threat. If you look at all the definitions of culture, there are so many. In the end, culture is, I think, how people behave in an organization. What are the accepted norms? What are common behaviors, even if they're not articulated and there's no committee, but like, hey, I go in this and I experience this as a person in this environment. This is kind of what people expect and how they behave. So if you go back to culture is how people behave in an organization or in a group or in a family or in any kind of organization, then it's, okay, what are those behaviors? And then this model influences those behaviors, or how you think about those behaviors, or how you anticipate. So another really good example is if you think about certainty. This happened to me recently. I got an email from a legal senior executive who said, I want to meet on Friday. So I'm like, oh my. And your brain kicks in, right? What's going on? It's usually not like, oh, it's great, he just wants to say hello. So the difference would have been thinking about this type of model. There is making this up completely. There's an employee situation that we need to discuss. I'd like your point of view. Please join this meeting. Now I have a little bit more certainty. I still don't know everything, but at least I'm not left to my own devices to make it up, which is what we all do when we don't have information. We fill in the blanks, and those blanks are filled in based on our own experiences, based on how our brains have developed over time. So my understanding, how I fill in that blank, will be different than how you fill in that blank, and neither one of us are probably right. Because I think the first is self-awareness. Right? It starts with us. How am I interacting with others? Can I see examples of perhaps where I am not creating the most rewarding state for my employees because of something I may be doing? And a really easy way to address that is to ask. Just ask, It could be about yourself as a leader. It could be about them, as we just talked, for the example that you just gave, which is an excellent one, right? Around totally missed understanding, right? And then, then take the feedback, right?
Yep.
Use it. And then, try on one thing. You don't have to like change who you are. It really is about self-awareness. And when you have the awareness, it's kind of amazing when you have the awareness, how things start to fall into place. And then as a leader and as a person in an organization, you start to see the triggers for you, because then you can also self-regulate, right? You could be like, oh, that's how that person operates. It's not about me. It's not even threatening to me because I know that's who they are.
Right.
I'm not making excuses for behavior. I'm just saying it's understanding behavior. But for me, it all starts with self-awareness and then empathy, to your point earlier, empathetic servant leadership. If you embrace that and you really feel your job is to create the best people around you, then you'll do what you need to do to lift them up. And you can't know that unless you ask them. And it doesn't have to be a lot. It could be like, hey, Kathy, how are things? I know it's a really difficult time. How might I support you? Well, because fundamentally as human beings, right? We want to be valued. We want to make a difference, right? And if you look at all of the Gallup engagement studies, we want to know someone cares about us. It's about really understanding what people need. And you kind of started this with the Hoosier example, right? Which is everybody's different in that regard. And what they value and what they want and how they feel they can contribute is different. So you can't paint it with the same brush, right? You have to understand each one of those persons to get the most out of them. But then once you do that, then you have everybody firing on all cylinders and awesome things happen.